It's finally done. This thing is ready to be on the road. It's roadworthy again. Let's take a look at everything we had to do to make this thing roadworthy. Let's get started. So yes, it is finally finished. And it's taken a long time and a lot of money to get it that way. Is it showroom ready? Is it fully restored? No. The customer didn't want that. He wanted it to be roadworthy. He would take care of the interior and some paint refinishing and things like that on his own time in the future. The goal here was to get everything functioning for his daughter to drive it. And that we have done. And in that sense, the car is done. Here in a little bit, we're going to open the hood, we're going to put it on the lift and show you everything that we had to replace. It's literally 3 pages long. Little things here and there, brake hoses and this and that, and nuts and bolts and washers and mounts. It just goes on and on and on and on to make this thing roadworthy. We talked about a budget in the previous video of $3,000 to $4,000, and just like every time that I have brought a car back from the brink, it has exceeded that budget. It always does. Before we exceeded the budget, we called the customer and said, hey, we're almost there. We've got a few more steps. We're going to hit that $5,000 mark. We did get approval from the customer. He was totally fine with that, and we continued on and finished the job. But it did exceed the budget. We're at $5,000 to make this old car roadworthy again. And the argument could be made, Car Wizard, you can just go buy one of those for that much money that runs and drives fine. Yes, you can. That would totally defeat the purpose of this person bringing their dad's car back to life. It's not about money or value here. It's about, I want dad's car, specifically dad's car, running again. And that's what we've done. So let's open the hood and start taking a look at this thing. Why did it cost $5,000? Let's take a look. These are one of the really nice things I like about older Mercedes, and even a lot of them still do it today, is the ability to open the hood really far. Just by hitting a few little latches on the hinges, and there you go. You've got it open really wide. So let's take a look around here. We'll start from this side and work our way across. We mentioned that we were going to have to yank the whole harness out of this car and replace it, but once we started doing that, we realized it wasn't as bad as we thought it would be. The majority of the damage was only in the engine bay. Anything in the car was perfectly fine. So I made the decision, I said, we're going to save this guy a little bit of money. We will be able to use the harness we had and pull those pigtails off and splice them into the engine harness and make everything work again, and it's not going to look bad, and it's going to save tons of work. So let's take a look. Here's the glow plug control module. We were able to splice in a new connector where the mice had just destroyed it and chewed it to pieces. These connectors here were all chewed up and destroyed. They're not now. They came off of the donor 300D. And even still, our glow plug module did not work because the module itself was also bad. So that as well came off of the donor 300D. Now keep in mind, every time I'm pulling a part off of the donor 300D, I am charging that on a bill. I'm not donating them. The car is donating them, but I am not. They're going to be a price for them. Here's some wiring here that we repaired. That was some things that went to the interior. We were able to get that repaired and taken care of. That's totally happy. As you can see here, we put new shocks all the way around. We were able to stay within the budget. We told them it's got new shocks. This here was all cobbled together with all kinds of weird connectors, and it was leaking vacuum. It was one of the reasons why the engine would not shut off when you turn the key off. We removed from here all the way down and everything in between from the donor car and brought it over to this car, and that fixed it. The engine would shut itself off like normal, like it's supposed to. All the vacuum deals started working again, so we're really happy about that. You do see that it has red off-road fuel in it. That was only put in the tank because they just needed to get it to the shop. That's what they had. They really quickly put some fuel in it so they could get it to the shop. That will be filled with proper road fuel when it leaves. We've got the new fuel filter. We resealed the pump primer and a new fuel filter here. The injector pump works fine. We didn't have to do anything with it. I did adjust the ALDA for them to get a little bit more power out of it. All the return lines have been replaced with this fuel rated line here. Also, the injectors, we found a couple that were bad. We were able to swap them out with the donor vehicle. You can see where my finger's touching. These are the glow plugs. There's 5 of them lined up all along the head there, the cylinder head. Those are all brand new. This thing starts up perfectly now because it has a fully functioning glow plug system. The cruise control, luckily it worked. Once we got everything running and roadworthy, I took it out and road tested it. I don't have to do anything with the cruise control. It works perfectly. Very, very lucky with that. We flushed the brake fluid completely out of the system. We flushed power steering and put a new filter in there. All new belts. You can see the belts down there. We took the fan off of the donor 300D because this one's original thermal clutch was shot. We had the valve cover off, put a new gasket on it, and we did a valve adjustment so that it runs very well. You can hear it runs very nicely. This is the donor car's radiator. The old radiator had holes in it. It was leaking. And it made sense just to swap over the good radiator out of the donor car. Here you can see before we leave this area, it's got a brand new AC compressor. The system had already been converted to R134 before it's brought to this shop, so I continued on leaving it that way. We flushed the lines, cleaned everything out, put ester oil, which is compatible with R12 or R134. Flushed out all the old mineral oil. And charged it back up, and amazingly it's got nice cold AC. The water pump is still fine. You can see the weep hole right there. It's dry as a bone. And it does very well. It works great. And a thermostat, which is behind there, is doing its job beautifully. So I don't need to replace those. Now we're over in this area here. The turbo had no issues. We didn't have to do anything with it. But as all of these 123 diesels have, the little mounts that hold this air cleaner on, there's 3 of them, were completely destroyed, and this thing would just rattle like crazy. But it has all 3 new mounts. Keep in mind, guys, every time I'm mentioning a part, the price is going up. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. Okay? Behind the turbo there is, we'll see it better when it's down below, but there's the down pipe that comes off the turbo. The original one was cracked clean in half. The donor car downpipe was perfect. So I got a donor downpipe. That took care of its exhaust leak and horrible issues that way. We had to fix some wiring that went to a pressure sensor. We also put a brand new receiver dryer. We went ahead and put these connectors that can come apart. So if you ever have to replace this sensor, you just disconnect it and plug in a new one. We had to replace the auxiliary pump here. The old one was locked up. That one works perfectly fine now. The mono valve, I was thinking we were going to have to replace it, but I was able to put just a small rebuild kit in it with the new little valve, and it came alive and it works perfectly. It has nice hot heat and nice cold AC now. There you can see the alternator. That is the donor car's alternator. The one that was on this car wouldn't charge. It did nothing. As soon as we swapped over to this alternator, it immediately came to life. Started charging the battery fine. And just like I said, guys, the price keeps going up. We keep replacing things. So you remember on the first video, all this wiring here was completely missing. It was destroyed. We were able to splice in that portion from the donor harness that I had. And it works great. No issues there. So that's pretty much it on the top portion of the engine, or in the engine bay. We also changed out all the fluids, like I mentioned. We flushed all the fluids. I just discussed a whole lot of work, and we haven't even left the engine bay yet. You can see the price is starting to grow pretty quickly. Let's get this thing on the lift, and let's continue to raise that bill even higher. That's just the way it goes when you keep on going and going and going. More stuff adds up. So let's get it on the lift. Okay, so we'll start here and work our way back, and I'll go over each and every item that we had to either repair or replace on the underneath. Let's get started. Here we had to repair some wiring for the horn. And right next to it is the block heater. It actually works, so it's ready for winter. It has AC that works. It's ready for summer. It's what he wanted, ready to drive. There really was no oil leaks or anything bad going on. The oil pan is in decent shape. It's dry, so we didn't mess with any of that. We'll go over to this, start with this wheel here. Had to put in a new ball joint. You can see there the other ones were completely shot, just like in the video. We resurfaced the rotors and put new pads on and new wear sensors. You can see the new shocks. Luckily, his upper ball joint and his sway bar bushings and all that was in very good shape. We did not have to replace those. Also, these tires. The customer supplied the tires, but I had to go get them put on and balanced and everything, so it's got new tires. You can see there's a little debris in there that's inside the spring. That'll blow out as it's driven on the highway. And there you can see an engine shock and a brand new motor mount. Both of those were completely shot on this car. If you go to the other side of the engine, you can see also a brand new motor mount and a brand new engine shock. These engines idle kind of rough unless you get those replaced and taken care of. Again, new shock, resurfaced the rotor, new pads, new wear sensors, new brake hoses all the way around. The old ones were completely shot. And up top, with the control arm and the upper ball joint and the sway bar, all that was still good, so we didn't have to mess with that either. So I've listed quite a lot of parts, but we're not even but halfway done. There's a lot more. We did service the transmission, all new fluid, got that taken care of. It's not leaking. If you look up in here, there's a new shifter bushing. Remember in the previous videos, that was floppy, like really bad. It's been replaced. Here we can see a brand new transmission mount. The other one was completely collapsed. A new flex disc because the other one was destroyed, cracked. Right here where my finger is, you can see also another shifter bushing. There's also some more up above inside the shifter housing that we replaced. New drive shaft support and drive shaft support bearing, brand new. That takes care of a common Mercedes vibration on the highway. The U-joint was in very good shape. We did not have to replace that. We greased the splines. Here's the other end of the drive shaft. Also another new flex disc. That one was destroyed. We also serviced the rear differential with brand new oil. There's a little bit of seepage here from when Junior changed it out. But in a previous video, we talked about how it had bad CV boots. That is not a 30-minute job. That is a job that pays about 5 hours at $95 an hour. That's $500 right there. So we got all new boots on the CV shafts. We also got new, like I said, brake hoses here. We got new exhaust hangers because the other ones are non-existent. This differential mount is still good. We're not going to mess with that. These fuel line hoses are still soft and supple. We're not going to mess with those. You can see inside of here, new rear shocks on both sides. Again, new brake hoses. We welded on a new ear here for the exhaust. The other one was broken off, and new exhaust hangers. We reattached the bumper that you guys saw in the back seat. We got that reattached and put back on, and it's a happy camper. And new tires in the back. And we're still not done. Let's go ahead and lower it down and look inside the interior. One of the complaints the customer had was his power windows weren't working, not all of them. Junior Mick got this all apart and found out why. This whole thing was completely broken in half. Luckily, we didn't have to buy a brand new one. we had the donor car. And again, I'm very thankful for that donor car to be here. It really has saved this guy a lot of money. We got that changed out. We also changed out the motor, the whole assembly. This window works perfectly. We had to take apart the rear right, I believe, and it had some issues. We got that taken care of. It wasn't that big of a deal. So let's take a look inside the interior. So as you can see, it has 171,000 miles, which is really not too bad for one of these. They can easily have 371. All the gauges worked, luckily. Some of these switches weren't working. The climate control was working. We've got the radio working. These window switches on this side, this unit here was bad. We were able to change that out with the donor car, had all this apart. We also replaced the shifter bushings inside of this housing, and that took care of all the sloppiness. It's nice and perfectly clicks into every gear like it should. You can see that the dash is still in disrepair. There's a lot of wood coming apart. And if you look in the back, you can see that some of the interior is drooping down. Those things, I talked with the customer and he said he does not want to pay for that stuff. So we are leaving that stuff as is. And really that belongs to an upholstery shop or somebody who's going to go through the interior and redo it all. I could do it, but that wasn't the goal that the customer wanted, and we're not going to do things without being paid. But the reality of it is the MB Tex, which is this fabric here, is in good shape. The headliner's in decent shape. Really, it's not too bad. It could be driven as is. It's totally roadworthy now. And like I said, the heat and the AC works perfectly. The blower works great. All that stuff's in good shape. So that's pretty much all we had to do on the interior. I did have to do a steering adjustment with the gearbox. It was pretty loose. But now it's very little play. That's it. It was probably 3 or 4 times that amount of play before. The gearbox is worn out. I could have replaced the gearbox to make it perfect, but we had already run up against even our increased budget already. So I got it very good, very roadworthy. It's not going to be noticeable that much, so we'll leave that as is. So we just went over all of that front to back. That still wasn't it. We had to go through all the lights and make sure all the lights work. That's part of making a car roadworthy. We made sure, like I showed you, the horn works. We made sure the turn signals worked. We make sure the wipers work. We put new wipers on it and got those working. Those weren't working, and now they are. All of those things combined, think about it. Every time I showed you something, it's a half an hour, another hour, 3 hours, 2 hours, and the labor just climbs and climbs at $95 an hour. And that doesn't include the parts. There's a common issue that I run up against anytime I have someone call for an estimate. And they say, well, that's a little bit more than I had budgeted. The price in the shop is not based on your budget. It's based on what it takes to do the job. And the last thing on drive home is I also run up against, oh, Car Wizard, I completely forgot that there's labor involved. I was expecting $600. You quoted me $1,000, and you showed me that the book time is 4 hours. I hadn't even thought about the labor, Car Wizard. Wow, that's fine. I'm ready for the $1,000. I'm just sorry. I completely forgot about. That happens a lot. People don't think that it actually costs to do the work. Wherever it is that you guys work, a lot of you work for an hourly wage. What if your boss came up to you on Friday or whenever payday is and says, oh, I was supposed to pay you? I completely spaced that off. What would you do? You'd probably quit. So, I need to get paid. You need to get paid. We all need to get paid for the hours of work that we do. And again, I wanted to thank Mr. Brimmigan for bringing us the donor car. He really saved not only me a lot of time, he saved this guy a lot of money. We hit that $5,000 budget mark. It would have been probably $6,000 or more if we had to buy everything new. One last thing to keep in mind, guys. $5,000 got this car roadworthy again. But if you wanted to take it to the next level and make everything like new, it'd probably be another $5,000 or more. And just like I mentioned in a previous video, getting an old car, oh, that was just like Dad's old car, a 67 Ford Galaxy or this or that. I could pay a shop to get it back fixed up again. It's always 5 times more than what you think it will cost. Imagine a 57 Chevy being sent out to California for a frame-off restoration. It's not going to be 3 or 4 grand. It's going to be 30 or 40 grand. Keep that in mind when you're out shopping for one of these cars and say, oh yeah, 1,500 bucks, I could have this thing back on the road. 1,500 bucks won't even begin to get it back on the road. Keep that in mind. I'm not saying these things to nag on you guys or try to be a jerk. It's just that I'm trying to drive home the reality of the situation when you pick up a project car and you're not doing the work, but you're paying a shop to do the work. Whatever your budget in your mind is, take that times 4. That's what it's going to take to get your car back on the road. And the reason why I'm driving that home is because during the day I get messages, Car Wizard, I found this car. What's it going to cost to get it going? What's it going to cost to do this? And they frequently are way under the bar on what they think it will be. So that's why I'm doing that, showing this to you guys. A lot of people want to see the actual repairs being done on these cars. There's 30 or 40 hours worth of labor. And if you had to film all that and edit all that, keep in mind, Mrs. Wizard has a full-time job. And so do I. And we're adding filming and editing on top of full-time jobs. So that's not a reality, that's something that we can do. And secondly, we have found that this channel has really settled into a niche, or settled into a home, I guess you could say. What does it take to run a shop? What can you expect from car repairs? What are some of the common problems with cars? Why does this cost so much? Why does that cost so much? What are good cars to buy? What are bad cars to buy? What kind of tools does it take to do this job? Where can I get these kinds of tools? That is what this channel is all about. The ins and outs of a shop and what it takes to run a shop. Not so much actually showing doing the work. That's not what we do on this channel so much. We do once in a while, but not a whole lot. We've gotten a lot done on the yacht, and that will be our next video. You guys definitely want to tune into that. A lot of the tools we use to do this job are on my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. You can check out every tool that I have, it's there. And if you haven't subscribed already, I really recommend you do. If you want to keep up with the yacht and what's going on that. We're doing a lot more yacht videos than we said we would. Like I mentioned, the numbers speak for themselves, guys. It's obviously very common what we're going to choose to do. We're going to do a few more yacht videos than we talked about. And I know you guys want that. We're going to deliver. So hit the subscribe button, and thanks for watching.